A new decade signifies something new, something amazing, something wonderful. That's how 2020 was, for the feast day. Then, on the 2nd of January, an American airstrike took out Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. The killing rose the already high tensions between the United States and Iran, so much so that allies of both nations were fearing Iran declaring war, since they would have to join the war because of the NATO alliance between the United States, Canada, UK, France, and many other countries in Western Europe. But that's not all. On January 26th, Kobe Bryant and his daughter's helicopter crashed just outside Los Angeles in California, killing them and 7 other people on board. People mourned the death of the beloved basketball player and his daughter, an up-and-coming basketball player. But of course the bad news kept coming. In late January and early February, it seemed like more people on the older side of the spectrum were getting the cold than younger people. It was around 65 and older. Nobody thought anything of it, until breaking news came out about a virus going around in Asia. Because of the amount of cases there, China had to close down, effectively closing its economy, the most important economy on Earth. Because no more products were being made in China, the global economy started folding in on itself. It would be all be okay as long as there wasn't an extreme outbreak in the next most important economy, the United States. But as Asia's outbreak spread west to Africa and Europe, with Italy, the UK, and Spain getting major outbreaks, it was only a matter of time before the US would get its first case. Then it happened. The first case in the US of the virus named COVID-19. Schools were closed, states were panicking, the economy was in a free fall. The government ordered a 1-month quarantine to a shelter-in-place lockdown. No one was allowed to travel. Shortly after, they extended quarantine to 2 months. Then,
the first death from coronavirus here in the United States. A man in his 50s dying from COVID-19.
Protests started over the quarantine, forcing government officials to open up, ditching their safe 3-stage reopening plan. Cases started surging. But meanwhile, in the government, Joe Biden was facing off against Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary to face off against the president in the elections towards the end of the year. Speaking of the end of the year, the end of the school year was drawing close, but since cases were surging in many of the states, people who had waited years for their graduation from college and high school were extremely disappointed. But many news organizations and governments found a special way to celebrate their quarantine graduations. Not the only time this year would bring us together. The next time is immediately after graduations. On May 25th, a black man named George Floyd was killed over what police officers thought to be a counterfeit $20 bill that he used in a store nearby. Derek Chauvin, a white police officer, knelt on George Floyd's neck for 7 minutes and 46 seconds, all while George Floyd was saying that he couldn't breathe and at a point crying out for his mother who had died 2 years prior. An ambulance arrived and carried Floyd to the hospital and pronounced him as dead. The killing sparked outrage out through the world as protests against the police brutality began, not just in the United States, but in the UK, France, and other places around the globe. The protests lasted for months, and they created change too. But that wasn't the only thing happening around that time. Because people weren't going outside, things had never been better for climate change. Some people think that it was a little too good, as Australian murder hornets started showing up in places other than Australia. It was the top news headline for a time, but it was immediately replaced with the sad news of the United States hitting record COVID cases every day, and the total case number in the US was just hitting 1 million, with the death count at 200,000. But now it's getting pretty late into the year, at around October, with the candidates bidding for the White House being former Senator and former Vice President Joe Biden and businessman and TV personality turned politician President Donald Trump. The debates were fiery, mostly revolving around the economy and the uncontrolled pandemic in the US, as people turned out to the polls in record numbers, breaking former President Barack Obama's number of 69 million votes. Even before Election Day, during a rampant pandemic that was killing thousands of people a day, around 52% of the expected number of people to vote had already cast their ballots either in person or by mail through early voting. In Nevada, every voter asked for a mail-in ballot. So, after 4 long days of ballot counting, Joe Biden was declared the winner. Trump sent out dozens of lawsuits about the election, claiming that there was cases of widespread voter fraud, almost all of which, including the Supreme Court cases, he lost because of a lack of evidence and widespread voter fraud. But that was just November. To keep it short, people were excited about the new year because of all the bad things that happened in 2020, but cautiously optimistic about 2021. Many people thinking of 2020 as a kind of movie trailer of what was ahead. People were excited about the end of the year that had been nothing but bad since the start.
With all the hardships that we had faced during 2020, I was really hoping that 2021 would be better, but I wasn't sure.
Well, 2020, coming off 2019, 2020 was really an anticipated year because it was a new decade, but with kind of like a symbolism with the 2020. And so at that time, there were lots of anticipated changes. It was an election year. And so many people were setting new goals. It was a new decade, and people were looking for a new lease on life and felt like this was the year that we would just accomplish so very much.
And just like that, the year ended. Historians will look back at this year as the year that tore us apart, but brought us together, pushed us down, but made us more resilient. Through the internet and social distancing, we were isolated, but not alone.